Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Donna Rozar of Marshfield is a Republican candidate in the 69th Assembly District. The primary is August 11. Donna, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me today.
What do you consider the top issue in your campaign, Donna?
Well, I think rural infrastructure is certainly something that we need to be concerned about. And I'm not only talking about roads and bridges, but I'm talking about broadband internet and making sure that the resources are there for rural Wisconsin so that we can move people and goods to their jobs and to market and give the constituents in rural Wisconsin a competitive edge in dealing and making their lives very productive.
Well, now you're a veteran member of the Wood County Board. My question is broadband access getting better in your area, or have you not seen much progress?
Well, I think we thought it was getting better, and then the COVID came and students had to be doing online classes, and that was a real problem for some rural students because there was not adequate access to the internet so that they could do their online classes. So I think that this unseen enemy that we've all been dealing with for several months has exposed the gaps that we have. And I think that in a way that was a good thing because now we have something to work on.
Okay. The other part of your first answer has to do with highways. We haven't been able to find a stable source of funding for highways. Our gas tax, 30.9 cents per gallon, hasn't been raised in 10 years. Are you willing to raise the gas tax, Donna?
I am not. We have one of the most expensive gas taxes in the area, and I believe we need to be creative with how we do that. It kind of is a quandary because we've got more energy efficient cars and they don't use as much gas. So raising the gas tax when people are using less gas doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. So I think that we have to come up with a way. Number one, we can't rate our transportation pot of money. It's got to be used for transportation. And so when we raise registration fees, when we have road taxes, when we have gas taxes, they need to go in a pot of money, and that needs to be kept for transportation infrastructure, not rated for other purposes. So that would be one place to start. And that in the past we have done that where we've rated the transportation fund to fund other programs. So we need to have a dedicated fund. And then we need to come up with some creative way as people buy more energy efficient cars. They drive less, and especially in this time period where we've stayed home, people just didn't use a lot of gas. So I think that there's going to be a shortfall in that. So we've got to find some sustainable way to build up our transportation funds and then use it for only that purpose.
Well, different subject. If the governor is right and we're going to collect $2 billion with a B less in state general fund taxes because of the pandemic, if you're a member of the assembly, you'd have a choice of, do you cut spending or do you raise taxes and fees? What would be your approach?
So it would be a twofold approach. I would never say that taxes would not have to be raised for a specific purpose, but it would have to be reasonable taxation and not tyrannical taxation. I think the second thing is I've never been opposed to user fees, that if you use a service, there should be a willingness to pay for that service. And so a combination of that. But I would add a third thing to that. Government is not the answer to everything. There have to be public-private partnerships that help local areas. And I would pursue aggressively public-private partnerships to address some of the issues that we deal with, because there'll never be enough money in the government coffers to do what people believe needs to be done.
Another news subject. Americans know a lot more about how some police officers treat those in custody than we did 2 months ago. The governor's recommended a 9-bill package that would, among other things, ban chokeholds and ban no-knock warrants, have standardized training for those who want to be police officers. Do you support the package? Do you see the need for any type of police reforms?
Well, I've talked to the sheriff in our county about this, and chokeholds nobody hardly in our county has been using chokeholds unless absolutely necessary. I would agree that training, maybe some martial art training for our police officers so that they don't have to go to their weapons a whole lot. I don't support the whole package that the governor has proposed, but I do believe that where we can, police departments have aggressively tried to be safe. And I know in Marshfield and Wisconsin Rapids and Wood County, they have worked hard to make their police departments as responsible as possible with additional training. Mental health issues are a huge part of what police officers do now, as you know. Our sheriff's department in Wood County has been partnering with our human services department to get some mental health training with de-escalation and things like that. And most sheriffs are not opposed to adding that to their training. Police officers don't, for the most part, want to do the wrong thing. And so there's been an effort to strengthen that training. And I think codifying things, law enforcement is kind of a local issue. And so codifying things at the state level, I'm not sure is the right way to go, that we need to encourage local law enforcement and empower them to do what's necessary to create a responsible law enforcement.
The debate over medical and recreational marijuana, what are your positions, ma'am?
I've always supported medical marijuana. I'm a nurse. I don't know if you knew that I was a nurse, but I know where marijuana has been beneficial with certain diagnoses. I'm really ambivalent about legalizing marijuana. I know that there are plenty of people that would like to educate me, and I'm open to that education, but at my current stance on that would not to vote for the legalization of marijuana, except for medical purposes.
Thank you. In terms of who would draw the next congressional and legislative boundary lines, the Constitution says the party in power in the Capitol shall draw them, subject to the governor's signature. The governor would like a People's Commission to draw the lines and then recommend them to lawmakers. What's your position on who should draw the next set of lines?
I don't believe you're ever going to get partisan politics out of drawing boundaries for congressional districts. I just really don't. I think that because the state legislature is the people's legislature, people get voted in and out to do it. I would keep the current circumstances of how to do that. Gerrymandering is a funny thing. The Democrats did it all the time they were in office. And now there's a lot of angst about it because they're not being able to draw the lines. So I believe that lines need to be reasonable. We need to have common sense when we draw those lines, but I'm hoping to be able to help infuse some common sense into the current policy.
As a Wood County board member, you're well aware of the caps and the limits on property tax levies on local governments.
Yes.
Of course, they can be exceeded by referendums, but if you're a member of the Assembly, would you vote to keep those caps and limits on property tax levies for local governments?
I would.
Why? To control property taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that there are enough rogue municipalities out there that would take advantage of raising taxes tyrannically. And so I would keep the caps on.
Okay. But local governments, such as the one you serve on, have a strong reliance on the property tax. Is it time to look at alternative sources of revenue, maybe broadening our 5% sales tax to some now exempt products and services? Or how about this idea, giving local governments and not just counties the ability to levy a half-cent sales tax?
Well, we already do levy that half-cent of sales tax for Wood County, and I think the majority of the counties in the state do. I am a huge supporter of consumptive taxes. If you use a service or if you buy something, that should be taxed. And people who have more discretionary income then are going to spend more money and will pay more taxes. I see property tax as a very regressive tax where you keep paying taxes on the same thing over and over again. And I don't think that's a fair way to tax individuals. If people don't have a lot of discretionary income, they don't buy a whole lot, so they're not taxed a whole lot. People who do then will buy more and contribute more to the sales tax. So I've always been a proponent of sales tax more than the property tax.
Okay. As a nurse and a Wood County board member, how badly has a pandemic hit your county, Wood County, and the services that the county must provide?
Well, relatively speaking, we've not been hit as hard as other counties, and we're very thankful for that. We've only had one death from the COVID in Wood County. We're still under 100 cases with under 50 active. It has stressed our health department. We've hired some LTEs to do contract tracing. Our hospitals have not been overwhelmed. Our hospitals in Wood County have not been overwhelmed with COVID patients. And so relatively speaking, we have not been in the same dire straits as some of the other counties have been.
Right, but some of our urban counties, you've seen what they're dealing with, and the pandemic has stressed the ability of local health departments and the state services and state healthcare services, and we've all seen the frontline role that hospitals have played. I guess my question is, if you're a member of the Assembly voting on the next state budget, should hospitals become an even greater priority than they are in the current state budget?
Well, let's talk about healthcare in general, not just hospitals, okay?
Sure.
I believe that the whole healthcare system needs to be looked at. And we certainly need hospital bed capacity, but we also need a healthcare system that meets people's health needs outside of that hospital. So looking at the big picture would be more advantageous than just looking at the hospital situation. You know, you've got primary care, secondary care, tertiary care. And as a nurse, I've always been interested in preventative care so that we prevent people having to occupy a hospital bed. So I would look at the whole picture of healthcare and what can we do to keep people in both rural and urban environments as healthy as they can be. You used the word pandemic. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but there's been some discussion that maybe this isn't a pandemic as the death rate goes down. I think that this has been a disease that has been highly politicized to the detriment of our society.
Okay. Well, let me ask this question. If a business follows all the health and safety rules of either the CDC or WEDC or DHS, do we need a state law saying that business cannot be sued, cannot be the subject of a frivolous lawsuit by either an employee or a customer who believes they may have got the virus when they were in that business?
I think that would be wise. I would have to look at that more because I'm a huge person that believes in personal responsibility. If you choose to patronize a place and they are doing everything that has been recommended to prevent you from not only getting this virus, but just having a clean environment where you're not going to get influenza or any other infectious disease, I think that it would be wise to give those businesses the protection so that they're not going to get, and I like the word frivolous because we're a very suit conscious society and people look at, I remember one time when my son was like a teenager and some girl backed into him at McDonald's and he called me and he said, should we call a lawyer? And I'm thinking, how did he ever get that attitude where you just call a lawyer when something happens to you? And, there's got to be some common sense in that. And I've been the victim of a frivolous lawsuit, and it was a very devastating kind of thing, very problematic and, a little anxiety producing. And so, yes, I would like to protect. I'd like to go after the people that file frivolous lawsuits and say, you need to pay. You did this stupid thing, and now the onus is on you to pay for what you have done frivolously.
New subject. When local governments want to authorize a major public works projects, should there be a bidding standard or a requirement that gives a preference to Wisconsin businesses? And the reason I ask is a study found that in 2015, out-of-state contractors got $72 million in contracts for these local public works projects, but that doubled to more than 146 million in 2018. Should Wisconsin businesses get preferences, ma'am?
I think they should get preferences, but I'm not sure it should be mandated. I mean, in Wood County, we always look at local contractors first, but we want the best person to do the job. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want there are at times, I think, when local businesses could not do the job that we are asking them to do. I'm personally a person that gives business to Wood County. You know that part of Marshfield is in Marathon County. We have a Walmart there. We have a Menards. We have an Aldi's. There are several things north of town. I have been encouraging people not to shop at those because I want Wood County to get our sales tax right now. So I've always pushed as chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, which does some significant projects, by the way, and then as a personal consumer to stay in county. And I believe that then as an assembly person, I would be very encouraging people to look in at Wisconsin businesses for their projects. But I always believe in choosing the best person to do the project.
Last question. Do you want to highlight differences with your opponents?
I will do that. I have a lot of experience. I have work-life experiences that are unique. I don't know whether you know that my husband, who was a cardiac surgeon, died of AIDS back in the 90s. And so that was a tremendous experience to go through. I had 5 adopted children under 10 when my husband died. And so that brought a whole set of circumstances. I've been a nurse for a while. I'm a first-generation college graduate who has embraced lifelong learning, starting with a diploma in nursing and ending with a master's degree in nursing, and have taught at UW-Eau Claire College of Nursing here in the community for over 10 years. I've been a nurse at, it's now Marshfield Medical Center for almost 20 years. As a Wood County Board Supervisor, you get a good understanding of how state government affects local municipalities. And they say that there's no better training ground for an assembly person than the Wood County, than a county board, because we understand then how the legislature, the policy that's made in Madison affects local municipalities. As chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, I have a broad understanding of child welfare, out-of-home placement, mental health issues, the health department is under my committee's oversight. So we've been very involved in this COVID situation. So there's a real understanding. Public safety, a lot of issues come before the county board that are dictated by what happens in Madison. And so that understanding is very beneficial. I've been a state and national leader in public health, so I've had that experience, and I have a really good working relationship with a lot of people in Madison, so I wouldn't have to start developing those relationships. Because of my county leadership, I have relationships with those individuals, which is a very positive thing to start out with. So I think experience, work-life experiences, the enthusiasm. I don't know whether you know or not, but in 2003, I ran for the 24th Senate district seat. Julie Lassa won in the general election, but I won the four-way Republican primary in that race. So I've been interested in state government for a long time, and I have a long time commitment to this community, to the values and issues that affect our rural community.
Donna Rozar of Marshfield is a Republican candidate in the 69th Assembly District. The primary election is August 11. Donna, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Delighted. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.